soon as I move up in the dorm, there's one of my old comrades named CD. He like, yo, check this out. He comes and hands me a news article. This news article was this woman right here.
Yo, what's up? Welcome to another episode of the Black Vigilant podcast. We're doing a little something different today, man. As you see, we're doing it on StreamYard today. And today we're doing something different from what we normally do. We're doing a little injustice episode today on how the justice system fails us as all the time as black people, though. So my guest is DJuan Collins. He's going to tell you a little bit of his story. And with me today is my new co-host, Twosignmilli. What's up, guys? What's going on? Yo, DJuan, when you ready, tell us about the story. Tell the people who you are.
Well, my name is DJuan Collins. I'm originally from Chicago. Excuse me, I'm originally from Chicago. I came out here in 1996 to get my life together off of drugs. I was bound by the crack epidemic back in the 80s and the 90s. And so I struggled for years for that, and I lost my relationship with my oldest son, as a result of my crack addiction. Um, so to make a long story short, I came out here to New York to get my life together, to get it off of drugs. And I wound up joining a Christian church called Christ Victory Temple Church that was in New York, that was in Chicago. They also have one here in New York. So I came out here, this is back in 1996. And I wound up getting in contact with the brush with the law. Like I was arrested in Harlem for a robbery of a crack addict for $10 and 3 VHS tapes. Me and my co-defendant. I was there to buy the tapes from the guy because this is when the $2 vouchers was out. And I was there to buy the tapes from him. And I asked my co-defendant if he recognized any of the tapes. And he was like, yeah, the 18 Bronze Men. So I pulled out a $10 bill, but my co-defendant talked me out of buying it from him because dude looked kind of flaky. So I'm like, all right, forget it. So right then his eyes got like saucers, so he saw the undercover D's. He saw the D's at the light. So he ran out there and told him that we robbed him, that I stole his $10. I said, oh, word? So I'm like,
Wow.
I'm going to jail. If I'm going to jail for anything, it's going to be for whooping your ass, and am I allowed to say that? Am I allowed to say that? Yeah, okay. So
go ahead, talk. Yeah, speak.
So I was trying to get at him, and the sergeant just hit me up, big old brolic sergeant, just hit me up and threw me up against Sylvia's. That's where it happened at. And threw me up against the wall over Sylvia's, and didn't ask us nothing, man. Just arrested us right there on the spot. Took my $10, took a photostat copy of that $10 bill, and gave this dude my $10 bill, bro. My attorney asked me if no, asked me what happened. Told me to tell him what happened. So I told him, and I'm like, yo, this is what happened. I was there to buy the tapes from him, blah blah blah, and this dude left me out to dry, man. I didn't know it at the time, but I if I would have known what I know now, then I would have never been through this, and we'd never be sitting here having this discussion, and we would never hear the truth about what happens with prosecutorial misconduct and how wrongful convictions happen, and they happen intentionally. So I'm here to tell a story exactly how it's happened. It's all designed to happen that way, no matter what, if you're innocent or not. It does not matter. If you go into that system saying that you're innocent, they're going to still find a way to find you guilty.
Really good, right.
So in any event, back in 1996, when this guy was accusing me of robbing him, and they asked me if I would take the cop out of 3 years, I said, well, no, I got to pray. I said, I got to think about it. So I went to go actually pray about it. So I'm a Christian. So I heard the Holy Spirit tell me, trust me. So I'm like, okay. So went to trial. Now, the kick was if I blew trial, I would be given a 5 to 10 years. So I went to trial in faith. And the trial was looking good. The prosecution were able to land no punches on me because the truth stood, right? We didn't rob this dude. So
Right.
when it came down to it, she brought the alleged witness, William Reynolds III. I never forget his name. He's coming down the walkway, and me and my co-defendant, we're waiting for this dude to come in here so he can look us dead in our eye and say that we robbed him, man. So we waiting. So this dude comes down the walkway, and we both look, and we both had said it at the same time to our attorney, come out, that's not the same dude. Because the dude, William Reynolds III, had a receding hairline that night. I knew him from the hood. The dude that came in that day had a full hairline, bro. It was not the same dude because William Reynolds was a crack addict who's homeless. You're not finding a homeless crack addict, bro. So she knew that. That's why she was tight. Caramel Hart. She's an ADA that wrongly convicted me. Um, but in any event, she asked this question. She says, "Do I myself own a TV or a VCR?" And I testified truthfully. No, I do not. Now, prior to her recross examination, she had asked me earlier. I'm sorry, what is recross examination? She was prior doing her cross examination. She asked me what I was doing that morning, and I said that I was watching TV. What was you watching? A color TV. What was on TV? Cartoons. It was a Saturday morning. So now you heard testimony. The jury heard testimony that uh, I was watching TV and that it was a color TV. So then later on, towards the end of her testimony, her cross examination, she says, "Do you yourself own a TV or a VCR?" And I testified truthfully, "No, I do not." And she spit off like, "No further questions." Oh, so now I'm looking at my attorney like, "You need to come up here and ask me something. Like, ask me if there's a TV or VCR on the premise of the apartment." But you already testified I was already watching TV. You know what I'm saying? So you need to come up here and clean this up. And he didn't. He left me up to dry. So I got down off the stand, and then the jury sent the note. They sent the note out when they was deliberating. They was like, they wanted to know if I owned the TV or VCR. So they heard the testimony, no. Next thing you know, they returned the verdict of guilty, bro. 5 to 10 years I was given. And
Wow.
that same attorney, Russell Paisley, he now works for the Bronx DA's office. Right. Exactly. Right. Well, the fact that my attorney never asked for a redirect was what got me 5 to 10 years. So I wound up doing 7 years straight on that. But for that whole year, I didn't want to hear nothing from God, nothing from man, no authority. Can't nobody tell me nothing. I don't respect law. I don't respect God. Like I was beasting up top, man. I was getting tickets left and right. They sent me to Riverview up there by Ogdensburg. And I remember for that whole year though, I kept getting in trouble, and because I had no money, I'm from out of state, have no resources. My stomach was always touching my back at the end of the night. So I was like, yo, I got to be easy on these tickets, on my behavior. I said, it's not, I said, because they can keep taking $5 out of my account every time. They ain't going to get tired. So I had to humble myself. And then I was like, all right, 5 to 10 years, I guess 7 years. Felt like thought about committing suicide. I was like, yo, I have an older son. His name is Deontay.
Yeah,
Like
that's
his
that's
father.
that's 7 years out your life, man. Like
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah. And I lost my relationship with my oldest son back in Chicago as a result of that. He blames me to this day. You know, that 7 years though, I said to myself, I said, the only way I'm gonna get through this is with you, Lord, because I can't do this. I don't understand why you allowed this to happen to me, but he kept saying, trust me, kept saying, trust me. And I kept thinking that was meant that I was gonna get a reversal on my appeal. That didn't happen. I was feeling some type of ways when that didn't happen. And he was still saying, trust me. I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get it on at the Court of Appeals. Now at this point, I'm learning. I have already learned the law because I started to apply myself. Because I told the prosecutor, ADA, Assistant District Attorney, Caramia Hart. I told her, I says that I'll be back, like the Terminator, I'll be back, right? So she was just
Right.
nodding her head. I was like, all right, watch me do my thing. I'm gonna figure out what it was that got me convicted and how I'm gonna overturn it. So for that whole 7 years I was in prison, I applied myself by learning certain trades. I went to general business because I said that I'm going to learn how to type. I'm going to have to learn how to type, right? If I'm going to be typing motions and briefs, So I took up general business and I learned how to do spreadsheets, desktop publishing, things of that nature. Excel, all that, PowerPoint, and from there I went to grievance. I learned how the internal process works, so how to make grievances, and then I was studying my case in the law library until the legal research course came around. Then I applied myself to that, or my certificate, and that opened up the door to eventually allow me to work in the law libraries now because I have the legal research certificate. Without that, they're not going to allow you to work in the law libraries. So I said to myself, I said, if I'm going to get out of prison, this is the way to do it. The
Right.
information that the information that is
Apply
needed
yourself with the
is in
knowledge,
these
you know
books.
what I mean?
That's a fact. It's in these books. They always say if you want to keep something from a black man, just put it in the book.
Correct.
So I
Because they
went
think we don't
exactly,
want to read. They think we don't want to read anything.
exactly. So that's what I said. I looked at them 7 years. I'm like, man, I'm in here for something I didn't do. And I'm like, yo, this is rough, boy. I'm all the way up here in Boondocks in Ogdensburg, like a half hour to an hour away from Canada. Like, it's crazy. So I said I had to buckle up. I had to put on my boots and strap up. That's it. And throughout that whole time, man, it was the Lord and that law library that helped me through. And I applied myself, and I was able to help other people by me, because a lot of people started coming to me for help, and I was like, yo, I got to be thinking about my own self. But I heard God said, if I fight his battles, he'll fight mine. That's what I heard him say. So I'm like, all right, fine. So I started helping other people, and I didn't know nothing about murders or anybody else's cases other than robbery. That's all I know. But by me helping other people out, I started gaining more knowledge about other things, right? And
Right.
over the years, I started learning how to litigate. I would put a lawsuit in. I didn't get anywhere with it because they lied in the lawsuit, But I saw that the system is all about lying, bro. I said, yo, they really corrupt with it. So it was,
Yeah,
it was
the
just,
system. The system isn't for the black man. It's not for
yeah,
the black people.
bro.
It's just yeah. It's designed. It's designed to get us caught up in that world right there, man.
Facts. So I was like, damn, all right, but at least I got a taste of the civil aspect of it, right? So I'm like, I was just
Right.
really playing around with it because it's like a trial and error thing for me. Let me play around with it now. So when the time really do, I really got to shake and bake. You know what I'm saying? I got a little experience under my belt. I see how this thing go. So that was a little test run. So as years would progress, I would get better and better and better, and as to the point where now I'm working in the law libraries. And I would go on and help a lot of people, especially the youth, because they would come, especially when I'm on the island. Say if I'm coming down uh, for the island for something. Oh no, actually, this is later on, so I'll get to that point later. But yeah, so that was
Mm-hmm.
on my first bit. I learned the law and in the prisons. And when I came home, I uh, I went to paralegal school, New York Paralegal School, 299 Broadway. They're no longer there, but I wound up earning my certification, and I went back into Rikers Island to take my knowledge and my experience to give back. And I eventually got caught up for another case, which is a drug case, which is what I'm going to talk to you about now. And which brings
Right.
me to,
That's the one that you was telling me about. Yeah. Now I'm
yeah,
looking at it right now. I'm doing the work right here. I'm on it.
yeah. So this one right here is
So,
the one that really rocked my world. Mm,
yeah. With Marion Mangela.
yeah. So with that case, I was a single dad, a single parent at that time. My son's mom, she was on drugs, and I'm not going to get into all the details of it because of the implications of litigation. But I will say that I was charged and accused of making a direct sale to undercover cop in exchange for $20 of pre-recorded buy money.
Ho- hold on, DJuan. Let me just tell the people a little bit of something about the lady Mangala that you're talking about right now.
Okay.
She was accused of a case of falsely labeling a sample of suspected drugs as positive for cocaine after it actually tested negative, because she allegedly didn't want to walk to another part of the building and fill out paperwork to have tested further. The sources said. So this is just a person that just didn't want to do their job and
Right.
was wrongfully fucking niggas over.
Yeah. Yeah. Facts. Yes, it is.
Right. All right, but
So
you could continue though. You can continue with yours, with the
yeah.
story.
So 2007, I'm arrested in Manhattan in front of 97th or 98th and Broadway, somewhere around there in front of the transient hotels over there. And as I'm being arrested, this is no lie, man. I'm not. This is no cap. As I'm being arrested, my head is bowed because I'm thinking about my son Isaiah back at home with his caretaker, and my head is bowed. And the next thing you know, I feel a wind blowing my left ear, and in the wind there was a gentle voice that said, "Trust me." That was the same "trust me" phrase that I heard when I prayed to God about the 3 years on the robbery case, and you're saying "trust me"
Yeah.
back then. And I was upset when I got 5 to 10. So that same "trust me" came back to me again just in that moment as I'm being arrested. And so when I hear that, I looked up very slowly at the officer, like he's just going about his thing, with the arrest process. I'm like, okay, he didn't hear it. And I turned around slowly, like nobody, like somebody walked past me, like, nobody walked past me. I was like, okay, that was the Holy Spirit. That was God. That was God, bro. So I'm like, all right, bet. So I'm like, God, I don't know what you got going on, but I'm with it. I said, let's go. So, bam. I said, if I got God, that means I don't need man. Now, my
You
first
got that
attorney
right.
came. Now, my first attorney came. She asked me. Now, mind you, as before she even asked me, before my first attorney, what was her name, Candace Kurt. Before she asked me this question, I heard the Holy Spirit tell me everything they did back to me in 1996, all the tactics they used to wrongfully convict me back in 1996. Now do it to them. I said, okay, because they used to use the tactic. Does it make sense? Use a common sense and disregard the evidence. If he doesn't own a TV or a VCR, it makes no sense for him to be talking to this crackhead if he was so, you know what I'm saying? If he was so bummy and distasteful, if he doesn't own a TV or a VCR. So that's what she was using. She was using that term, makes sense as a comment. You know what I'm saying? She kept using that. I recorded it. She used it over 55 times in her closing summation back in 1996. You know, and using the phrase of they putting the prosecution's credibility on the evidence was another one of the things they did to boast. It's called boasting the credibility of the evidence, so they bolstering their witnesses. This goes on a lot and without objection by counsel. So God said, when God said everything they did to me to get that conviction, now do it unto them. I said, okay. So now my attorney, Candace Kurt, she comes and asks me. She says, now tell me what happened. So I said, oh no. I said, why don't you tell me what the prosecution's theory is? She says, well, they said that you sold 2 dimes of crack in exchange for $20 of pre-recorded buy money. I said, okay, well, that's what I did. I sold 2 dimes of crack in exchange for $20 of pre-recorded buy money. So she was like, okay. So I said, but I want to testify at the grand jury. She was like, well, you may not need that. You may not have to testify. So I was like, I still want to testify. So she was like, well, what would you testify to? I'm like, none of your business. And she just walked off. Because what I found out is based upon my experience back in 1996, when your attorney asks you what happened, your version of your side of the story of what happened, they're going to go back and tell the other side what you told them, which they're not by law supposed to disclose that. That's called attorney-client confidentiality.
Lieutenant Confidential. Yeah, yeah,
But they do it, bro. They do it. This was a court-appointed legal aid.
yeah,
No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's
yeah.
not. I even had a retained attorney, and I'll get to that later. So it doesn't matter. What do you mean? A retained attorney from the from New York? Okay. Well, we gonna talk about the problem towards the end. But so in any event, uh, so I'm at trial. So now my attorney asked me what happened. I tell her the same thing that the prosecution said. I want to testify at the grand jury. She wouldn't. She denied me. So when I found out I was indicted, because they was like going to go back, I was like, going to go back. I told the officer, I'm like, no. I told my attorney I want to testify. He looked at the chart. He was like, nah, you've been indicted. I'm like, oh, what? I'm like, all right, I got stuff for that ass. I went to the law library, got me a CPL 190.50, put that thing together, served my attorney, served the court, and the DA. Yeah, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to break down the 190.50. Yeah. So what 190.50 is basically when your attorney waives your right to testify before the grand jury without your knowledge or consent, which the attorneys oftentimes do, and then they come back and say that they're allowed to do that. No, you're not. You're not allowed to waive my right to testify before the grand jury without my knowledge or consent. No, no, you can't. And they'll say, oh, they're allowed to do that because it's strategic on their part. That's their strategy, their trial strategy. But you have the right to know and be informed of your right to testify before the grand jury. And if you choose to waive your right to testify before the grand jury, that's your choice. But you must be informed of that right. And if you do choose to testify before the grand jury, you must inform your attorney of your right to testify before the grand jury so that your attorney can serve the cross grand jury notice onto the DA. That's how that's supposed to go. But in my situation, my attorney, Candace Kurtz, did not do that. She waived it. So when I put the 190.50 in and we went to court on the felony on the indictment, we went to court on arraignment on the indictment. I told the judge, I said, Judge, where's my motion at? She was like, what motion? You don't have the right to submit a motion. Your attorney must submit a motion. And I'm like, my motion is right there. So the paralegal, he was like, it's right here, Your Honor, because I'm in the law library and
You
right
would have
beside
asked
me.
for another attorney.
Huh?
I said, so why didn't you just like want to switch your attorney? Because it
But that's
seems
what the
like
one that's what the 190.50 would have done. But
okay,
so what happened was when when the young man, the paralegal, brought the 190.50 motion, he showed her. She told him to bring it up, but the way that she did it, she was upset that he exposed her. She didn't want to hear it. She was trying to ignore it. So she looked at it, she read it, and then she's like, "Well, you don't have the right to submit a motion. Your attorney must adopt the motion." So the judge turned to my attorney and says, "Miss Vivian, no, her name wasn't Vivian here. Miss Kurtz, do you want to adopt the motion?" She was like, "No." She did just like this. "No, that's against me." And so she was like, "Well, that's that." She never ruled on the motion. And I found out later in the first department, People versus Renaud, Renaud, which is the First Department Appellate Division, it says that in any time if a defendant submits a pro se motion, the court cannot ignore that motion. They must decide on that motion. They must make a ruling on that motion for later appellate review. And in my case, she just ignored it. So she wasn't supposed to do that. So that was one issue for an appeal, right? Now going forward, the judge told us that I cannot pick and choose what attorney I want. So therefore, she was keeping my attorney on the case. And I said, oh, okay, all right, I'm gonna help out. So she's trying to come back to me, and she wants to try to talk to me and tell me going forward, this is what we. I said, let me tell you something right now. If you come anywhere near my case, I'm gonna spit in your face, straight like that. I stay on my case if you want to. She hauled ass, bro. Yo, I had to get greasy like that, cause, yo, these attorneys would try to would literally railroad you into prison, bro. That's their job. Their job is to railroad you into prison. It's called a star chamber. Yeah, yeah. Their job.
That's their job right there to lie.
A lot of people really think that
Basically, that's the job.
these attorneys are strangers, bro. These attorneys are strangers. They don't know you from a hole in a hole in the wall.
Nah,
And
but see, but that's where the legal aid doesn't work in your favor though. Because if it's a paid lawyer right there like that, they have to do what you say.
yeah, but you have to know what to instruct your attorney to do. If you just hand them the case and let them drive, then you got
Right.
problems.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. You was instructing your attorney on what to say and what you want her to do, and she still wasn't doing it.
Right. So now you got to go. You got to
So
go.
yeah,
Anytime you a rogue attorney, you got to go because you doing your
that's
own
a
thing.
whole fact.
You know what I'm
That's a
saying?
fact. Cause this is my life on the line right here. She
That's a
can't
fact.
like
That's a fact, boy. Real talk.
word.
So
Yeah, they don't care.
facts. Like I told you, my attorney, he works for the Bronx DA. They call that patent a case. He works for the Bronx DA's office. How you go from being a criminal defense attorney to working for the Bronx DA if he wasn't giving up cases? That's what got you your career with the Bronx DA's office. But he about to have a rude awakening. I'm about to come back after them. They about to overturn all that. Yeah. So so when I told my attorney, when I basically agreed with her going forward, um, I testified when God told me, when he whispered in my ear, you remember I told you and I got arrested, he whispered in my ear, trust me? I said to myself, I said, well, God, if you're saying trust you, that means I don't need man. So I had to fire all three of my attorneys because all they wanted me to do was cop out the 3 years. Cop out, cop out, cop out, cop out. And I kept saying, no, 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 because that's not trusting in God. The cop out, the trusting in God is not accepting something right now. The trusting in God comes in not knowing what's coming. You know what I'm saying? Just stepping out on faith. So that's what I did. So I went to trial in faith that everything was going to work out in my favor because if you say if I would have told my attorney what my defense was in the beginning, she would have used my defense against me and told the prosecution, and they would have tailored their case around my defense, which would have watered it down, and it wouldn't have been as effective as it was in this case. So going forward, I went to trial. And like I said, I represented myself. I presented my defense, and the cell count was dismissed through the grace of God. The judge was furious with the ADA. It was like the ADA name was Joseph Perry. The judge name was Louis Bart Stone. He's now retired out of Manhattan Supreme Court. He was like, I don't know what just happened here. That's exactly those exact words. I don't know what just happened here, but you said you had a strong case. You had a pro se defendant. You had the drugs. You had the pre-recorded bad money. You had the officer come in here and testify. What more evidence did you need? But anyway, it's lost in the murk of things. And the ADA, he was like, well, what if there's an appeal down the road? The judge was like, well, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Now, during my trial, mind you, I'm representing myself. I told the my attorney Herschel Katz. He was the last attorney that they had assigned to me. He was my standby counsel. They assigned him a standby, but he was just giving me basic general objection. Talking about he's just sitting on the side of me talking about object, 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 and I'm doing that dumb shit, and I'm like, Yo, man, get the fuck out of here. Yo, go sit over there with your peoples, bro. I'm not doing these general objections because none of these general objections gonna preserve the record. You can't make general objections. You got to be specific with your objections on what you're objecting about. So I said, yo, get up and go sit over there with your people, man. The ADA, man. He literally got up and went to go sit over there, bro. I was not playing. So it was just me and the Holy Spirit. And they lost the cell count. They lost the top cell count. And I blew to the possession count based upon the lab technician's testimony.
Mm.
At my trial, I asked for the chain of custody report. There was no chain of custody report at my trial. How is there no chain of custody report? Y'all bugging. There's no due process, boy. The judge, Louis Barstone, he told me the chain of custody report is what I said it is. Objection, Your Honor. I'm entitled to the chain of custody report. That's Rosario material. Okay, so the chain of custody report is basically a report that identifies a specific item that has capabilities of being changed. Okay, some things don't need a chain of custody report, but certain things that has the capability of being changed, being modified to make sure that it is an original state as when it was first received, up until the point that it was brought into trial. There's a report that shows each place where it was handled, who handled it, when, and how long it was taken out, and when it was entered back in, and who entered it. So that would be the chain of custody report. So in this case, this is a drug case. So it comes from the chain of custody report would start from the time that they took the lead sample off of me of crack cocaine, right? And all the way up until the lab technician finished doing what she needed to do to finalize the report and do what she needed to do with it, right? None of that was at my trial. So you're saying that this is crack and it came from me. And I testified at my trial that I'm innocent. So I would. She definitely was. She testified at my trial that she tested the substance and it tested positive for cocaine and with a purity level of 70.8% pure. And that she used this machine called a GCMS, a gas chromatography mass spectrometry test. And representing myself, I remember that, and I made a note of it that when I had a chance, I was going to research it because, like I said, they didn't provide me with no type of defense. All I had was my word and God sent all the injustice. You know, so in any event, that's what she testified to. And I eventually was found guilty on a possession count based upon her testimony. Like I said, the sale count was dismissed because the jury didn't believe I made a sale to an undercover cop. And I was given 8 years for allegedly possessing 1.5 milligrams of crack cocaine. Far be it from me from
Damn,
my
that's
conviction
crazy.
was the fact that I lost my son Isaiah while this whole mess was going on. So now I'm fighting a wrongful conviction case, and I'm fighting ACS, the Child Protective Service System, here in New York. And
So not to cut you off, but so you were a single father at the
yes,
time. You was okay.
yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, his mom was around, but she really wasn't there because she was struggling with her own drug addictions, And I was trying to
Okay,
help
so
her.
you had your son.
Yeah, I had sole custody of my son.
Okay.
I had to fight to get him out the system. Um, yeah. So now I'm in the system. I'm thinking about my son. Like, man, I'm hoping that he can get with my mom as soon as possible out there in Chicago. That was the plan, but it never unfolded that way. They literally took my son from under the care of his grandmother under the guise of an emergency removal. and they placed my son in foster care with a stranger instead of my son's own family. Like, who does that? Uh, ACS worker Dawn Forrester did that, man. She removed my son under the guise of emergency and told my mom to come to court. They removed him on a Sunday. She told my mom to come to court a Sunday night. They removed him. They told my mom to come to court Monday for emergency placement because they tried to take the ACS worker told my mom to just take my son. He's not in the system, but my son has sibling visitations. That's why they came to the door because my mom was like, she saw all the letters that came from up under the door that I had missed visitations, sibling visitations. You know what I'm saying? So
Uh-huh.
that's why so my mom saw that, and then she told him that she's there with her grandson. That's why they came by, and they they removed my son under the guise of emergency, which they wasn't supposed to do because there was no emergency. He's with his grandmother, who happens to be a nurse. You know, so
Right,
there was no
correct.
right. So there was
So
no
why?
emergency.
So if you don't mind me asking, so why did they take your son? Because if he was with his grandmother, like
Right,
I feel
right.
like
That's
she should have been able.
exactly, King. And that's not that's exactly what should have happened, but it didn't. That's why to this day I'm still fighting to reunite my son. He's now 15, you know, but he's about to be emancipated. I'm about to emancipate him when he turns 16 on his birthday. You know, these rat bastards, they had the audacity to terminate my parental rights on my son's birthday. The Brooklyn Family Court, yes, they did. They terminated my son's parental rights on his birthday. My parental rights on my son's birthday, man. But
Damn,
in,
yeah.
in any event, uh, fast forward. So now I'm fighting family court and I'm fighting criminal court. And I'm fighting an attorney because my mom hires this attorney. And I said, yo, mom, don't do nothing until I vet this dude. And I vetted him and he identified the same legal issues that I identified. The chain of custody report, which I preserved, which was the main issue. You know, I couldn't prove that the lab technician falsified the drug lab reports, even though that's what my testimony was, but I wasn't able to prove it legally, you know?
Right.
So that was in 2008. Fast forward 2010, I'm coming down from Fishkill Correctional Facility to Rikers Island to go to Brooklyn Family Court. I'm still fighting for my son to place my son in with his family in Chicago because the agency Grand Windham in Brooklyn they instituted a petition to terminate my parental rights based upon neglect. You know, permanent neglect. They saying that I permanently neglected my son by failing to provide an adoptive resource. Adoption was never my plan. So what are you talking about? That was the agency's plan. The agency the whole time wanted me to surrender my parental rights, and they switched their goal plan from return to parent straight to adoption. You know, there was no placement for willing and fit relative, which should have been the plan that the agency should have did, but they never did that. My mom put in the they told her that she can become a kinship parent, you know, and she can get federal funding assistance with that. So she did that. The Illinois approved her, state of New York approved her, and they failed to place my son with his family in Chicago. Man, you know, my mom and my sister, my family, they put together a whole room for my son with the little playground area, the little magnets that you stick on the chalkboard, and it said
Right.
"Welcome home, Isaiah." Those are the words with all his educational toys stacked up in a nice little pile with his bed. Everything was nice and neat, you know, and that's what she sent me when I was in prison. She sent me that, you know, and I'm thinking that my son is gonna go there, you know, and it never happened, bro. It never happened, man. Despite the fact that my mom was in my son's life, that my son was even getting approved to go to Chicago to have bond with his family. He met his whole family over there, man. My son's family is huge. His family is huge on both sides, his mom and his and on my side. And the fact that you would sit up there and say that it is not in my son's best interest for him to know any of his heritage, any of his family, his bloodline, and just cut that off and say you can no longer know your family no more and place my son with a stranger because of your own agendas for financial gain. Because this is the kick. They have this statute. It's called ASAF, the Adoption Safe Family Act, which is going to be abolished real soon. Uh, that provides them federal incentives, federal funding for getting children adopted. They give the state agencies extra money for adoptions. This is crazy, right? Um, so that was one of the things they did to keep my son into the system. They delayed the process because it states under ASAP, if your child remains in foster care 15 out of the most recent 22 months, the first person that will get a chance at adoption is the foster parent. So what they was trying to get me to do, the caseworker, Marjorie Jean, she was trying to get me to surrender my parental rights and telling me that my mom would get a chance to adopt my son. So now I'm home when we having this discussion on parole. But I said to her, I says, well, you are aware that if I surrender my parental rights, then the foster parent will be the first one to get the option to adopt my son. She's like, hmm? She ain't say nothing. She was like, mm-hmm. Like I caught her. She didn't think I knew that. You're trying to condition me, a father, having natural rights into association with my son. You're trying to get me to surrender my constitutional right for a statutory right to place me on an equal footing with the foster parent under the ASAF statutory uh, regulation. So when she nodded her head, and I'm laughing in the back of my mind, like, oh, you think you dealing with an ignorant black man, don't you? No, I'm very well educated and highly favored.
I want to get back to like the lady, the lab technician lady,
Yeah.
Marion Mangala.
Mm-hmm.
I want to get back to her. Like, I want to like tell me more of that story right there. Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
So now I'm coming back down um to Rikers Island to go to court for my son Isaiah. And as I'm coming down I'm coming to the 4 building, I pull up in the dorm. As soon as I move up in the dorm, it was one of my old comrades named CD. He like, yo, C, yo, check this out. He comes and hands me a news article. This is in 2010. He comes and hands me a news article. And in the news article was this woman right here. This was the news article. It might not be this exact news article, but
Yeah, I have that. That's yeah. So for the people, hold that up again. So hold that up one more time, Juan. So if anybody want to go and check it out, read it up for themselves, you can go to the New York Post and check it out. Yeah, that's good. That's good. Juan.
All right. So when he hands me the news article, I'm reading the news article, King, and I'm like, my hand is shaking. I'm like, oh, oh. I said, yo, son, this is the news. This is the lab technician chick that testified in my trial. It said that she was suspended for falsifying over 3,000 drug cases. And I said, that's exactly what I was saying in my trial, boy. And I said to myself, I said, but how do I prove that this happened to me? So I felt like God was telling me to file a FOIL. So I said, a FOIL? Huh, okay. Boom. So I'm like, but I need to know what to file a FOIL on. So I had to wait till I had to get back upstate because the law libraries in Rikers Island are so substandard, bro. It was crazy. So I waited till I get back upstate, and then because I worked in the law library at Fishkill, I knew to go to the scientific book. They have a scientific book in jail, in the law library. So I went to the scientific manual and I looked up that thing that she said in at the trial. She said that she performed a GCMS, gas chromatograph mass spectrometry test. So I looked that up in a scientific book and it showed me a diagram of what it looks like. And then it showed me that it prints out a sheet, which is called spectrographs, which is the printout that you get from the sample that's provided to the unit. So
Right.
I said to myself, spectrographs, huh? I said, now I represented myself, and I didn't see anything that looked like some diagrams going up and down in a triangle type fashion, which is what spectrographs are. Like you ever see your heart monitor,
Yeah.
that heart rate, those are
Yeah.
graphs,
Yeah. Yeah.
spectrographs, right? So in the scientific community, those are called spectrographs. So I said I didn't see any spectrographs in the material, the documents that the prosecution handed over to me at my trial, which is Rosario material. And I said, okay. So I looked at it. I'm like, okay, that's what spectrographs is. I started doing the research on that. Oh, okay. I didn't have that. I didn't have the chain of custody report. I didn't have any certifications. Blah, blah, blah. I said, okay. Yes. Well, nothing, boy. Just bro, this was bogus. So I put all that in my foil and I sent it out certified mailed and I also sent what to Internal Affairs. They denied me. Now, when I submitted my foil, I heard the Holy Spirit tell me that the relief you're not going to get the relief here. You're going to get the relief in the Article 78. So when I submitted the foil, right, I immediately started researching the Article 78. And I went to what is called a mandamus to compel. A mandamus to compel is used to compel the government to do something that they are required to do by law, unless they can set forth a specific exemption for their denial. And in my case, they was giving me a blanket exemption, which it was just a rubber stamp. They just can't rubber stamp nothing. You have a right to know what the government is doing because the government is the people's business. So that's one of the ways you go about doing that. It's called a FOIL, Freedom of Information Law. If you want to obtain something from the federal government, it's called a Freedom of Information Act. So in FOIA. Uh, so in my case, it was a FOIL. So I submitted the FOIL, and knowing that they was going to already deny it, I already knew that I had to exhaust my administrative remedies before I can get to the Supreme Court with my Article 78 mandamus to compel. So while I'm awaiting my for the decisions from the administrative level, I'm working on my Article 78. I'm trying to figure out how to win. And I I draft my arguments according to how others have lost. Because when you see how other people's lost a case, the court would tell you exactly what they need to do to have won that case. And that's what I would do. I would then tailor my case around what the courts have already ruled in favor of. And every time I do my arguments like that, I win. Every time I help somebody with those same type of strategies, just like you playing chess, I win. Through the grace of God, I win. And in my situation with the foil, they denied it at the administrative level. Boom. I took those exhibits. I put them in my Article 78 to show that I exhausted all my administrative remedies. Because a lot of people, when they go to submit their Article 78, they get denied for failing to exhaust their administrative remedies. So it's very important that you exhaust your administrative remedies when bringing Article 78 against an entity or body. So in any case, I wound up winning the Article 78, and they tried to say the issue was moot and academic because they granted me access to the documents that I was seeking. So they tried to say because they granted me access, that moots the issue. So I researched the cases that they cited, and all the petitioners had actually received the documents that they requested in their FOIL agreement. I mean, their FOIL petition. So I wrote them back. I said, well, merely granting one's access to something in the future does not moot the motion or the petition unless I actually received it. I said that people state for their proposition that these following cases, but all the cases that they people state for their propositions, those petitioners actually receive the documents requested, which is what I'm doing here. And being that I have not received the actual documents requested, the issue's not moot and academic. And I submitted that as my response. The next thing you know, I got in the mail, priority mail, the documents that I was requesting from the FOIL. That was in 2010. From 2010 to present, man, it's been a hassle. I've held on to these documents. I've preserved them.
Long road.
I preserved them for years, bro, because I knew in my heart of hearts, bro, that one day, hopefully, that this too will come to light, man, and that she would be held accountable, and everybody that had their convictions wrongfully, where their cases wrongfully tainted as a result of her, had their convictions overturned now. You know, that's my hope because it's basically the same thing that happened in Boston, Massachusetts, with Amy Farrak and or Amy Dukin and Sonia Farrak. You know, those were two lab technicians out there in Boston, Massachusetts. Um, it was on Netflix. It's a documentary series on Netflix called "How to Fix a Drug Scandal." And I looked at that documentary series, and it's a process that these lab technicians use called dry labbing. Um, and the stories are often because they are often pressured by the prosecution to um, expedite the drug cases because of the amount of drug cases that's coming in is clogging up the dockets. So they put pressures on the lab technicians to hurry up. So in Megala's case, that pressure caused her to miss some steps that she needed to do to ensure that the testing results that she was submitting upon the court was done in accordance with the policies and the procedures of the laboratories. In her case, she was not doing that. She missed some steps, but instead pushed them through as if they were reliable and authentic. And instead of informing the defendants, the court appointed attorneys of these defendants got their clients to cop out. So that's how they was able to keep it quiet. But instead, they tried to get me to cop out, and I wouldn't. And this is the reason why this is brought to the light now. And I hope that this story
So,
would
so after everything that was said and done, right? Like,
yeah.
just the question I had, like, did you feel like you should have copped out?
No, not at all. Not at all. Why would I cop out if I'm innocent?
True. That's true. I agree.
I didn't cop out. I didn't cop out in 1996 for a robbery that I didn't do. You're not gonna piss on me and tell me it's raining, man. If a man got to stand for
Nah,
something,
that's true.
bro.
That's a fact.
Like I went in like knowing full fact that even if I'm convicted, at least at some point in my life, I know I stood for something I believe in, man. I believe in principles and values, and I hold true to that, you know. And if nothing else, I would hope that somewhere down the line, my offspring was to look back over my life and see these recordings, see everything, and see what their father, their grandfather stood for, man. You know, and I hope that was still something in him, you know. But to this day, I've gone through a lot to try to get this lab results um, or this conviction overturned. And it was through the grace of God I happened to have had in contact with some woman in Nebraska. Like I don't even know how we connected. It was crazy how we connected because everybody I was trying to find somebody to analyze the paperwork. Oh, I forgot to tell you this part. While I'm in Fishkill, when I get the paperwork back from the foil, I had two different lab results. I look at one that Mary McGalla said that she did, and she said it was a purity level for 70.8% pure. Then they said they did a reanalysis testing in 2010, 3 years after the arrest, and they said that the purity level shot up to 72.2% pure. So it the sample of what you're saying is crack cocaine got better over a 3 year period of time, increase of 1.4%. So I looked at this numbers, these different percentage numbers, and I'm sitting up there and I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So as I'm walking in ASAP, I'm in an ASAP door because anytime you get arrested and you get convicted for drugs, you go into an ASAP door, alcohol, substance, and abuse treatment. So I'm in an alcohol, substance, and abuse treatment program, and I'm walking past the police station. Now, the police station houses this particular one heavy set officer, very overweight white guy, and I'm walking past the station. And as I'm walking past the station, some says, go ask him to analyze the spectrographs. So I stopped, I turned around, looked at him, I judged him. I'm like, oh, this fat sloppy, he don't know nothing about this stuff. He was probably working on a farm. So I began to walk on my way. And it's like I felt something slap me upside my face, talking about, go ask him. And I'm like, oh, I felt like that's, like on some real talk. So I'm like, okay. I went to go ask him. And I'm like, you wouldn't happen to know anything about spectrographs, right? And he was like, sure. I was like, you do? He was like, yeah. I was just one of those kids who got bored and went to school. I was like, oh shoot. So I handed him the two different spectrograph reports, one from '07 and one from '10 that I got back from my foil. And he looked at it. He was looking at the paperwork. He says, no, these numbers are off. These numbers are wrong. These numbers are too high. These bundles are off. I said, yo, break all that down for me in layman's terms, man. He said it's not from the same sample. And I said, bingo, thank you. So basically, the lab people who did the alleged reanalysis of the 2000 sample that they say they got from me that was crack cocaine, they also forged their documentation as well to cover up Megala's to cover her up. So now the cover up gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's where we at right now till the bubble's about to pop. So this one particular lab um, expert that I was able to find through the grace of God, she
We gotta
contacted me.
the one we
Uh-huh.
gotta like get to the whole. We gotta get to like the whole point because we're getting ready to wrap up soon.
All right. So I get to this new expert and she analyzed the paperwork. Her name is Dr. Melissa Alvarado. She analyzes the paperwork and she gives me her report and it contradicts everything that happened, bro. It invalidates everything. She said that there was no chain of custody report. There's not even an office to where they said that the alleged drugs went. It said the office is unknown. How you gonna have that as the first place in the chain of custody report and the office is unknown? So what are you guys doing? So this is what I have now. I have the lab report. Everything's right here in this little booklet I put together. Here's the lab report. If you can see it right here, here's the lab report that nullifies everything that I'm just telling you guys. This is a 4-page lab report. She outlines, documents everything, all the evidence that she had to work with, which is the transcripts, the chain of custody report that was not provided to me at my trial. And these are all the documents that she analyzed.
Okay.
And then finally, she gets it, a seal of approval. And the rest is just some of the documents you can see here. The first page here, you see that's the reanalysis. It says 72.2% pure. You see that?
Period. Yes.
Right. So that's the 2010. And this is the 2007. Saying it's 70.8%. So it's basically this records fraud, and a whole lot of conspiracy issues.
Yeah, that's great.
So I'm currently also out on bail right now with a manufactured domestic violence case. That's stemming from September 018, man. And I'm out on bail right now through a miracle of God. But that's another story, I guess, if y'all want to cover that one. But it's crazy what they did with the body cam footage and the CCTV footage. They manufactured the body cam footage. and they won't give me access to the audit trail logs, like this chain of custody report for the drug case. So the audit trail logs
Mhm.
is like the chain of custody report for the body cam footage, for which they can alter. So anybody who goes through got a situation with body cam footage from an officer, if you say your narrative was one way, and when you go to look at your discovery and it's if it's a whole different way, you want to ask for the audit trail logs immediately, off rip. That's the metadata. Okay, so I'm going through that right now, and Manhattan Supreme Court. It's a vendetta against me. They're very vindictive because they trying to shut me down because I'm exposing them, and they trying to put me back in prison for a manufactured domestic violence case, man. So if anybody care to support, I'll be going to court on the 7th of October, 9 o'clock, Part 81. Um, the assistant district attorney, his name is Cheever, Cheever. If so that's all I got on that, man. If you guys want to become a part of Vocal New York, we're looking for volunteers to come in and support and help us to push our agendas, man, and not theirs. All right. Thank you guys for allowing me to be on here, man. I appreciate that, Biggs. Twosignmilli,
Cool,
man.
cool.
God bless, bro. Thanks for giving me this platform, this opportunity to talk about my struggle and my campaign for saving Isaiah, man. Appreciate that.
Definitely, definitely. No problem, no problem, my guy. Appreciate you for coming through and telling your story. Appreciate that.
Definitely. Appreciate you, King.
And everybody else, go to the New York Post, check out the article, see how foul these people play, and and read up on what my man DJuan here is going through right now, and so many others like
Facts.
us out here, because
Facts.
it's a war on the black people, man. That's why I named the show Black Vigilant, because we gotta stay vigilant
Facts. Peace.
at all times.
All
So
time.
I'm saying, so appreciate you, Twosignmilli. Once again, this is my co-host, the new co-host right here. He's with me. We rocking out. We doing new things. So look forward to a lot that we got coming, man. It's a lot coming. We working here.
That's what's good. That's what's good. Let's get it. Let's get
We
it.
appreciate y'all. And till next time, another episode.